Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen. I'm joined by my usual broadcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played 11 seasons for the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. This is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. We come to you twice a week to talk all things hockey. And today we got an incredible game to talk about, Tom. Didn't go the way that the Ranger fans would like it to, but it was, for an opening playoff game in a series, you can't get much better than that.
Yeah. And the Rangers really started well, too. Coach Gallant there really liked that. He said the first 25 minutes, I thought particularly the first 20 minutes, they played well. And then, it's amazing because during the regular season, I didn't see them do this, but they really got Crosby watching, where a couple of times just 2 or 3 players would go to him and not worry about the other people. It was really reminiscent of how when you played against Gretzky the first few times, that's what would happen to you because you knew he was so good. It really wasn't him beating you one-on-one. It was him drawing people to you and then feeding the people that were open. So kind of surprising. But I guess the good sign was that Shesterkin was unbelievable. He stopped like 70-some shots and some big saves, too. It wouldn't have gone to overtime if it wasn't for him. So he should be there pretty much all the time playing that great goaltending for the Rangers. And they will play better because it really wasn't that last part of the game. It's just a lot of mental mistakes. So.
Yeah, a couple of observations about the game. Number one is, we always, and we being the collective hockey fan group and media, we tend to analyze series like we really know what's going to happen. We talk about, it's going to be, this goaltender versus that goaltender. Their defense is just too good. They're going to score goals. Crosby can't be stopped. Connor McDavid's unbelievable. We've got all the and then the hockey gods just come in and say, you guys know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Like there's a randomness about hockey that we just don't want to factor in.
Yeah, I know. And we never learn either, right? We always keep doing the same thing.
And we know that, but we still act as if, we've got it figured out. Either we like the coach and Gallant, or we think Mike Sullivan does a good job, or it's no different. Like when you go watch a horse race and you say, well, that jockey's really good. He must know what he's doing. He's on top of that horse. He picked that horse. It's kind of the same. And then there's luck that plays into it. Like for example, I saw before the playoffs started, the NHL put out a statistical look at playoff hockey, and I was struck by one thing. How often do you think in recent years, I think the last couple of decades they looked at, do you think the lower seed wins a playoff series?
How often does that happen?
Be the underdog. How often does the underdog win in a percentage basis? Percentage basis.
25% of the time.
Yeah. 48.9.
Oh, is that right? Wow.
So almost 50% of the time, the underdog wins. Now, compare that to the NBA. If a team's favored in the NBA, they're going to win. I would say they win 80% of the time, maybe more.
Yeah.
And same thing in the NFL. If there's an exceptional team, they usually end up in the Super Bowl. I mean, I remember people talking about the Rams last year before the playoffs started. Like, well, this could be the Rams year. They got it all figured out. We can identify those teams.
Yeah.
Not so in hockey, and I think baseball is like that as well. I think it's a little bit harder there. So that's my observation. It's just there's some randomness about this. I mean, let's look at Florida and Washington.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
So I mean, Florida has all the stuff that you like. About teams, they're hard to play against.
Yeah.
They're edgy. They got some guys that play on the edge of the rules.
Yeah.
Ekblad is back.
Great goal scoring. They'll outscore anybody.
Yeah. And then they lose 4-2 to Washington, who's been nondescript.
Yeah.
Really. And then what else defies explanation is, and I've been talking about this all year and I talk about it in terms of everything that I've learned about hockey in the last 35 years is totally out the window.
Yeah.
And a lot of it I learned from you with regard to the little things. You got to do little things right.
Yeah.
We talk about that all the time. How many little things do the Colorado Avalanche do well? They're terrible at face-offs. In fact, worst in the league.
Yeah.
Penalty killing, not so good. No, they don't do that very well either. So are they hard to play against? Not in comparison to, say, the Nashville Predators or the Calgary Flames or some of these teams that, that are real big and heavy.
Yeah.
What does Colorado have? A lot of talented players.
Yeah,
a lot of talented players. Yeah. And of course, they're the one team that in game one just went out and took care of business the way everyone thought they would. 7-2, we got it.
And early, right? They jumped all over him like 5-0 right off the bat.
Yeah. Face-offs, who cares? Being hard to play against doesn't matter.
They're different. They're different.
They're different breeds. So anyway, but let's go back to the Penguins and Rangers. What's amazing about that is you're absolutely right. Like, I thought the Rangers took charge of that game early, and I thought, well, this is going to go the way that I predicted it would. It would be the Rangers and everything else. And then a weird thing happened. Like the Rangers' defense got sloppy, I thought.
Terrible. Watching the puck. Oh, man.
Yeah. I mean, and going into that series, the analysis is the Penguins' defense, other than Letang, pretty nondescript. Pretty nondescript.
Yeah.
The Rangers' defense, Adam Fox, Lindgren, some talent there. These boys know how to play. Coming together, young group, hungry. I didn't see that in game one. I saw it for about 20 minutes.
Absolutely.
So,
Shesterkin covers up a lot of mistakes for them, and he did that early in the year too, where they really weren't playing that well defensively. They played better defensively late, but Shesterkin was a big.
I mean, he was fantastic. Like, there was the 2 goals, the tap-in goals, the 18-inch birdie putts. Where it was all about the setup. Of course, how many teams can do those kind of goals anymore? Like, we see those goals a lot, but not anymore. But those guys,
the one Malkin called for, and like you can see what he was doing. Listen, this guy's wide open. Give me the puck right away. He had to stick up in the air, yelling for it. Yeah.
Oh, and how about the Gunsel second goal? Crosby, skating horizontally, diagonally into the zone. What a pass that is.
Well, what he did well, as Fox and Lindgren on the ice together, and they both got mesmerized by Crosby. They both went to him instead of talking it out. And they played together a lot, and they played well together a lot too. So they were. I didn't think Lindgren had a great game. Again, he's got to be solid. He took a penalty that I really don't think was a penalty. It was a roughing penalty. Again, I don't think it was that bad of a play, but. And again, it wasn't just him. I'm not just picking on Lindgren, but when he's going to be out there with Fox, they're going to get a lot of ice time, and they're out there against good players, and he's got to do a better job than he did. And I think they did well too. So
now let's make sure we get the lingo right, because when you're in the playoffs and it's a penalty you don't like, it's a ticky-tack.
Ticky-tack.
Yeah.
Oh, the big one was the fourth goal that did not count for the Rangers, where Capo Caco got called for running into the referee, or excuse me, running into the goaltender.
Yeah.
That was well, it was one of those ones that it could go either way. So if they didn't, if they allowed the goal, then Pittsburgh had a right to be mad about it because the goaltender did get knocked down. You could argue from the Rangers side that the Capo got pushed into the goaltender. So it's tough.
Yeah, that's a hard one. Well, remember what Joe Paterno said in football? It wasn't hockey. Don't put yourself in a position where one official's call.
Yep, totally.
It's going to cost you the game. But Shesterkin, I thought, was very good. He played well. I was sort of disappointed. Not sort of. I was disappointed in the Rangers' defense. And then the Penguins' defense that really, as I would say, was pretty nondescript other than Letang. They got the job done. And then Casey DeSmith goes down.
Yeah.
Like,
they say it was an upper body injury is what they're saying. So
now, they may have won the battle, but the war may be lost if he can't play.
Yeah.
I mean, do we really want to go with Louis Domingo as the
let in no goals, 17 shots?
Well, he did let in no goals, but one period versus and so you went to bed, and then it was time to get up.
Yeah. So we were actually at the game. They had a bunch of alumni there. I left it at the end of regulation, and then got back in time to watch the overtime. So stayed up, and then up to 3:30. So not a lot of sleep. I remember your voice was in my head saying, there's no excuses. You've got to stay up watch the
Yeah,
game.
there's no excuses.
Yeah.
But boy, don't we live for those games like that game was success. Now, again, I feel sorry for Ranger fans because the anxiety and you lost the first game. Although, because of the goaltending situation in Pittsburgh and the fact that we know the Rangers can play better.
Yeah,
I think this one win is less exciting.
Was it just a loss or a bellwether event? Just like Kevin's saying right now, to me, it is just a loss. That's
yeah.
It doesn't matter. And in the playoffs, it doesn't matter if you lose 10-3 or 4-3 in overtime, triple overtime. It's a loss, and that's it. Again, I agree. I think the Rangers, again, showed how well they could play in the first period and how poorly they could play in the second, third, and the remainder of the game. Again, Shesterkin was fantastic, but Zibanejad didn't do as much as he normally does. Kreider scored a goal on a feed from Zibanejad. Not that they were bad out there, but they can do better. And just team defense. You can tell they were trying too much. Fox at one point got hit in the first period by somebody on the right side, and it was a clean hit, no penalty called on it. He ran all the way to the other side. This is early in the game to try to hit the guy, get the guy back. That's not Fox's game. Should not be anybody's game for the Rangers. They should say, okay, I'll get that hit. I'll write it down. I'll get you later on. But he shouldn't be running around doing that kind of stuff. And that to me, that was typical of what they did during the game. And it's surprising again because during the regular season they were not in awe of Crosby and Malkin. They played them the way you should play them, just one-on-one. Crosby's not going to beat you one-on-one if you're a National Hockey League defenseman. It's picking up the other people, so he has nobody to pass to, and they didn't do that. So,
well, we always say one of the axioms of hockey is your star players have to be star players in a playoff game. I think Penguins were.
Yes, they were. They really were.
Malkin and Crosby.
Yeah. And Malkin was stirring the pot out there too, rubbing the glove in people's face like he does. Yeah. And the Rangers were taking the bait a little bit too. So, Pittsburgh only had one penalty in the whole game, including overtime. Rangers think had 6 or 7. So, but again, I don't think that's the referee. I think that's the way the game was played, and the referees called it the way they should. So, yeah,
I mean, you look at, what I did a column where I talked about what I learned on game one. First of all, I don't care what happens in the final, 2 or 3 weeks of the season, because Mike Smith played terrific for the Edmonton Oilers. The Oilers played terrific.
Yeah.
And then they get in game one, and you know what? Their goaltending problems didn't go away.
Well, he threw the puck away on that one goal, right? I mean,
that's what I'm saying. You could say, well, that was one mistake, but how big a mistake can it be?
And that's the thing with he's like that. He's good playing the puck, but then a guy like that is good at playing the puck gets maybe a little carried away, right? It's a 3-3. Yeah.
Well, and then this is what I love about the contrasting statistics. Jim Bouton, the great Yankees author / pitcher, he might have been a better writer than he was pitcher, but he wrote tell your statistics to shut up. And that's what I say about Mike Smith. So he won 9 consecutive games at the end of the regular season, only gave up 3 or more goals in one of those games. So 2 or fewer in 8 of those games. Right. But now he's lost 10 playoff games in a row. Do you think that's in his head? Do you think he thinks about that? Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. That's pretty. I didn't realize that stat, but losing 10 in a row. Record.
Yeah. No, I mean that's so and the other thing too is we all said, well, boy, like the Oilers, they got the best possible matchup. You couldn't do any better than that. Maybe we should have said the Kings got the best possible matchup. You can't do any better than facing the Oilers. I mean, we just maybe we're undervaluing where the Kings are at.
The Kings are those young teams. Sometimes with a young team like that, you just don't know any better. Just go out and play, right? You don't know about the pressure. You don't feel it. Yeah. How about my prediction of the Tampa Bay Lightning winning 4 straight against the Toronto Maple Leafs? Yikes.
Yeah, it's not aging well. Yeah.
No.
I mean, I had talked about this for a while. I've talked about it on several. I mean, I took Tampa to win, but I had been talking for a month on other broadcasts about I've been watching the Tampa Bay Lightning, a team I love to watch. And they haven't played well. Like they've looked ordinary.
Yeah, that game, especially early, it just looked like they were non-responsive.
Yeah, they looked ordinary. And Vasilevsky, I would still take him. over 96% of the goalies in the league, because I might take Shesterkin over him.
Yeah.
But he's looked ordinary to me, so it hasn't looked the same. So, it's early, and but I thought it was important that Marner scored. He had gone 18 games without a goal.
Right.
1,000 days.
People have asked me too. Could they be tired? It's a third season now. They went to 2 long seasons before going all the way to the finals and winning. And I keep pointing. I said the Islanders had 5 series where they went to finals in a row. In fact, they had a 6th one where they went to the semifinals, so they didn't get tired. But maybe that's the case. Maybe they just worn out, these guys, from playing so much hockey.
Yeah, or more likely, I think it's just their depth is eroded.
Yeah.
They had a lot of players, but they've had to move those for salary cap reasons. They've had to, move them to, try to bring in some other guys and get a little younger. So, yeah, they haven't looked good. A team that has looked good, where your former Northern Michigan defensive partner as general manager is the Carolina Hurricanes. Took care of a team that both you and I like. We like the culture in Boston. We like the tradition, the almost tribal-like tradition of playing good defense. And Carolina just smacks them in game 1, 5-1.
Not that shots on net always, but Boston had 36 shots on net, and Hurricanes only had 25. That's kind of when you win 5-1 and you're getting outshot like that. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, it is. I think that's reflected in, again. What do we know about hockey? This is what we know about hockey. It's so important that you have the best goalie.
Yeah.
So Carolina's goaltender, Ranta.
Yeah.
Their backup, Freddie Anderson, is not even there. Don't trust Ranta.
Yeah.
He's been a backup his whole life, but he comes in, plays well.
Stops 35 or 36. Yeah, we don't trust him.
gets the job done. But you got to have a great goalie. You got to have a great goalie to win in the playoffs.
Definitely. Well, speaking of goaltenders, then, so do we have a goalie controversy in Minnesota?
Well, controversy might be too strong because when you get a controversy, what that implies is you're going to really tick off one goalie. I think Marc-Andre Fleury would handle it well.
Yeah.
So,
it's Talbot playing so well. So just so everybody understands, Fleury played in game 1, lost 4-0. So again, you're not going to win the game anyways if you lose 4-0. If you don't score a goal, you're not going to win. So you can't put it all on Fleury, but Talbot playing so well. I still believe, listen, especially with a goaltender like Fleury, who has proven himself over a long period of time. Yes, he's had some tough stretches in the past, but he's proven what a competitor is, how he can come back and battle. I would still go with him. But if they don't go with him, if they go with Talbot, the advantage they've got is they also know that they can come back to Fleury again if they have to.
Right.
They've done that before. It doesn't bother them. So.
No, it doesn't. That's a great series. That's the tightest series. And these two teams are equal. Number 3, number 5 offensive teams in the league.
Yep.
Both teams are heavy teams. They're physical teams. They ready. They come to play in their armor. They're ready to go. So, I think that's still going to be a great series. And then, what about Calgary? Gets it done. But that was tighter, a little tighter than we expected it to be.
Yep.
I guess the point I would make after that game was don't sleep on the Dallas Stars.
Yeah.
They're there. They're in the series.
Yep.
I like Calgary better, but if you take it too lightly.
Hold Calgary to 1 goal. They've got some pretty good offensive players there in Calgary too. So
yeah.
Wow. What is the goaltender for Dallas? What's the Oettinger? Oh, interesting. Some of these guys haven't heard of. Kind of reminds me of the year many years ago when Chicago won the cup against Philadelphia. Remember the goaltenders at that time were 2 backup goaltenders. At that time, they were backup goaltenders, and everybody's like, "Well, you don't need a number 1 goaltender."
Yeah, it was the Finnish kid for Chicago, right?
Niemi, was it Niemi? Yeah.
Yeah, Niemi. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Interesting.
Who was Philly's goalie?
Lettinen? No. God knows U.S. It was a North American goaltender. I can't remember his name, but I'll think about that.
Well, speaking of that, Philadelphia. So they had that little press conference. Mike Yeo was let go. Not a big surprise. He was an interim coach. Hadn't gone well there. But Chuck Fletcher appears he's surviving.
I know.
Um,
You kind of wonder, is he, because again, with Hextall was there before, and he wasn't doing really what they wanted. They wanted to rush things along a little bit. They wanted to, get these young players going, be more successful than they were. And Hextall was willing to be patient. Does Yo now toe the line a little bit more and do what they want him to do? Is that the reason he keeps his job? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess it'll be interesting to see who they hire there. To me, there seems like a logical choice there in Rick Tocchet.
Yeah.
The Flyer fans love him. He's a legend. I thought he did a good job in Arizona. As a defensive coach, if you remember, that team was pretty good defensively when he was there.
Yep.
And
his attitude, you think, is like, if you think of him as a player, that's what the team needs right now there at Philadelphia. They're the exact opposite. They're very passive. They don't stand up for it. And I know the game has changed and everything, but to me, and they didn't in Phoenix, they didn't necessarily play the way Rick Tocchet played, but the game has changed. You can't play that way anymore. But they definitely need more of that attitude in Philadelphia. But,
yeah. Well, then the other news that's come out of Philadelphia lately is this Ryan Ellis injury. It seems a little unclear whether he's even going to be able to play right away in the fall. It's gone from a knee to a pelvic injury.
Oh, I didn't know
I don't have a lot of details on it, but it's become complicated, and there seems to be some doubt about whether he'll be ready for training camp.
Interesting. Wow. I didn't hear that.
Yeah. Wow. So that's really bad news for them, because you can make a case for them. Well, you get Ryan Ellis back, and then with the players that they have there, they've got some good veteran players. I mean, to me, the key to that is they've got to find somebody to take Van Riemsdyk's contract to $7 million, so they can get some flexibility.
And I hear you. I think you're right in what you're saying. It's just, to me, that we look at that culture thing again. For some reason, that locker room has just gotten stagnant and flat. It just doesn't look like the guys want to compete for each other. And then they lose their I guess they call leader in Giroux going off to Florida. So
yeah,
here's a good question. So bounce around. What role will fatigue play after triple overtime impact New York Ranger goalie choice? No, you don't think of changing. To me, unless Shesterkin gets hurt, he is the goalie, and that's it. Again, even if he has a bad game, I don't think you pull him. I think you keep him in on that.
Yeah, I mean, because you ruin. Shesterkin could be ticked off at you for years.
He's a young goaltender. Yep.
Yeah. So no, you wouldn't consider that. Fatigue will be an issue, but it would be on both sides, and because that's a long time to play. Yeah, they won't skate today.
Yeah, they got optional skates. Both teams have optional skates. Some press conferences there. So
yeah, and you won't see too many guys skating. No. The young guys, the Black Aces, they'll be out twirling around.
That's right. Yeah.
Getting ready.
Coaches will be bored, so they'll be out there bag skating the guys.
Yeah.
That used to be funny because the young players, they weren't going to play anyways, and the coaches had nothing else to do, so they would skate back and forth.
Yeah. Well, they'll take out their frustrations with the Ranger team on those Black Aces.
That's right. That's true.
You boys are going to pay the price because we didn't like how we played defensively. So
big night at the Garden last night too. The game was really irrelevant, but your broadcast partner was dancing in front of 18,000 people at Madison Square Garden last night. Just so you know.
Is there video of that?
Yes, there is. I'll send you the video. In fact, I'm going to post the video later on. So they have a gentleman by the name of Dancing Larry that's been there for years. He's just a Ranger fan who's got up and danced during this certain song they play. And so now it's become a thing that the Rangers and Madison Square Garden actually participate with him. So we did a funny video. Stefan Matteau, Glenn Anderson, and myself taped it about 3 weeks ago of us trying out. The theory was that we were trying out for the Blue Crew. The Blue Crew was the people that throw the T-shirts, come out and shovel ice a little bit. So it was actually pretty funny. They had Stefan Matteau imitating when he scored his big goal on Marty Brodeur in Game 7 with the Devils. He did that with a shovel instead. So it was kind of funny, the whole thing. And then they had us out there in the ice throwing out in the building, outside the ice, actually in the stands, throwing T-shirts. So then later on in the game, period 3, where Dancing Larry gets up and dance, they have the Blue Crew actually dance with him. So I was pretending that I was actually on the Blue Crew. I was very happy. Also, they had a really tight sweat. It was really tight. The shirt they gave me was really tight, so my arms were sticking out, and I was pretty proud of that too. So,
well, I can't wait to see this video.
Yeah.
Now, did you dance male style where you just kind of, bobbed a little bit?
I was pretty excited, actually. I got into it pretty good, but still wasn't like, they had the dance crew. They were obviously, girls were into it a lot more than I was, but I was into it. I got going. For me, it was pretty out there. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So now back in your heyday,
yep.
You're at Northern Michigan.
The Alibi was a disco we used to go to. The Alibi.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. The Alibi Disco.
Yeah.
Would the collective group of people that you hung around, would they say you were a terrible dancer, an okay dancer, or an unbelievable dancer?
An intoxicated dancer. I'd have to have.
Yeah. All right. That was a fourth choice, and that's a good one. Yeah.
The Alibi had the lighted dance floor too underneath. So
yeah, they had a big ball on.
Yeah, they did. And the dance of the trend at that time was the worm. You would get down on the floor, and
I just could see you just all over that. Yeah. Did you have enthusiasm for the project? I guess is the key.
Well, it was dancing with a purpose. Was the young ladies would want to dance, so you'd have to dance when they were
right. So
you didn't really. I did not really dance because I wanted to. It was
Yeah. So well, so you might have still had enthusiasm for the project. It just wasn't the project that they had, right?
That's right. So, I had my own project. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. So,
oh, God.
All right. Well, that'll be good. I'm glad you cited that was the primary event of the night and not the triple overtime game between the Rangers.
I mean, the Penguins calls, so nobody really cared about that. Yeah, everybody just went away saying,
"Well, I've known some guys that would have said you could pay me no amount of money to get me to dance in public." So apparently the Rangers paid you enough to get you to do it. So
yes, you know what though, it's one of those things they would have done for free. I have changed that way because I was like that too. There's no possible way. But since I've been doing all the True Good Life stuff and being on Survivor and everything, that's kind of become who I am. They called me up and they said, "Listen, we know that we're going to get a hard no from Matteau and Anderson because they did the video. So it's up to you. Do you want to do it?" And I paused for a second. I said, "Yeah. Come on, let's go. It's another adventure." Yeah, a lot of guys were laughing because they were like, there's just no way they would have done it at all. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think there are people in life who have an embarrassment complex that they wouldn't do it no matter what. And then there are other people who kind of think, I don't care if I embarrass myself. So,
but yeah, and I just think, that's a great point. Like, I think that I've kind of taken myself out of that comfort zone where, I just don't, it's an adventure.
You just don't care. So.
Yeah, it's an adventure. That's the way I look at it. I don't really care what somebody else thinks. I want to do it. I'm going to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to do it, that's the key thing.
Totally. Now, how about you? Like, would you have, first of all, do you?
No, I wouldn't have done it for sure. I'm a typical male. I have danced. My wife likes to dance, so I certainly would dance with her when we go to the wedding.
You're the guy dancer, like dancing with the elbows.
Yeah. I mean, I just, bebop along. But, my friend always talked about life. He always said, when you go to a wedding and there's dancing going on, there are people who dance in the middle, and then there are people who don't. Right. Like when everybody's ringed around and people who dance. And in life, one of my friends who was a lawyer said, "Kevin, you're one of those people who can dance in the middle. Sometimes you do. Rarely you don't, or often you don't, but you can do it when you want to do it." And I think by that he meant just in terms of, whether I'm as a reporter, I always like to blend in the woodwork. I'm not the guy that likes to ask the questions so I can be on television. I like to wait till after the press conference, and when the guy's walking away, ask my question. I don't like to get, my answers necessarily out there, and that's how I am in life. I'm capable of standing up and talking in front of people, but I don't necessarily enjoy it. So
now that your partner now, he just loves doing it. So
anyway, it's just not my thing.
So who's going to win tonight? We got Boston and Carolina. Who are you taking in Carolina game 2?
Well, I think so. I mean, I thought that was pretty impressive the way they took it to Boston. Boston's a veteran team though, so they won't roll over, and it's important you win because historically, I think it's between 75 and 80% when you have a 2-0 lead.
Yeah,
you win 3/4 of the time or better.
Well, if you're the visiting team and game 2 is in, on the road and you win that game, now you've taken away the home ice advantage, which I don't know if it means as much anymore as it did.
Well, no, I got a stat on that too. You'll be interested in this one. Okay. So they had in the last 10 years, just game 7s. They decided we'll just take game 7 because you always say you want to be the higher seed just for the game 7 home ice advantage. So in game 7 for the last decade, what do you think the home ice advantage has been percentage wise?
I'm going to go with the 50-50.
It's exactly what it is. It's 22-22. There is no home ice advantage in a game 7.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about it, we often say that the game 7 is a coin flip.
Yeah.
Yeah. That it really, because, you get that point, then it's a lucky bounce, a hit, one power play, a ticky-tack penalty,
Yeah, I guess that's interesting because you do get the last change when you're home.
Yeah.
I guess the matchups aren't really that big of a deal. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, historically, home ice used to be a big deal.
Yeah.
And now it really hasn't been over the last several years. I think parity kind of erased all that.
Yeah, very true.
I mean, it's the same thing. Like we always say, like there's no lead worse than a 2-goal lead, and we know what that means. What that means is you get complacent. Yeah. You stop attacking. So we know what that means. Now we have seen some teams come back from a 2-goal lead, and when they do, we always talk about there's no lead worse than a 2-goal lead. Yeah. That's what we say. Yeah. But does it really happen that often? Well, the answer is no. It doesn't. It doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
Most teams that get a 2-goal lead, they win. So
Rangers were up 2-0 last night too. Huh?
Yeah. So
all right, Tampa and Toronto in Toronto, game 2. Toronto.
Yeah, well, I liked how Toronto looked. I liked the fact that Matthews and Marner now look like they're going to be playoff warriors. That was the big question. Yeah, you can score Austin Matthews, but can you do it in the postseason? Which seems ridiculous to me. Right. But
they had a big relatively big brawl halfway through the third period there with Maroon bloodying somebody. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah.
So does Tampa have? I mean, Tampa's got to obviously have a lot of pride, right? They've won 2 cups. They got some pride men there. Corey Perry's at the end of his career. He's a battler, competitor. Steven Stamkos, Hedman, all those guys. God, you got to think that but like you said, they surely haven't shown it the last part of the season that they've been.
No, they just haven't been the same team. They haven't. They've got the equivalent of a master's degree in winning. Right. They understand, and that's half the battle. You got to understand how to win in the playoffs. Yeah. They understand. They know it. They got it. Totally. They know it wants to be done. But you get that swagger, like the Blackhawks had that swagger when they won, 3 cups in 6 or 7 years.
Yep.
Where, they come in and they say, well, how do you want to play?
Yeah.
You want to trade goals? We can trade goals. Yeah. You want to play physical? We can play physical. You want a goaltending battle? Yeah, we'll put Corey Crawford up there against you. How do you want to play? Just let us know.
And that was definitely the Islanders back when they won their 4.
Yeah. How do you want to play? Well, I think the Lightning over the last 2 years were kind of like that. They had a great goaltender. They have stingy defense. They could score a lot of goals. They had, but now it's less so just because that great last year, that third line, Gord and the kid that's on the Rangers now was on that line as well.
I know who you're talking about. It's awful.
Yeah, Barclay Goodrow. Yeah, Goodrow. And then Blake Coleman.
Yeah.
That line was really almost a second line. It was like they had 2 second lines because they had 3 lines that could score. Well, all 3 of those guys who were so important to the success of the Lightning, they're all gone. They're elsewhere. They're playing on a different team.
Yeah.
And then they had a guy like Tyler Johnson who, wasn't even much of a factor in the regular season. But in the playoffs, he had a little history of stepping up, rising up, and getting a big goal. So, and he's gone. So their depth is just not
even Shattenkirk and Bogosian, who, although they were, older players, really played important roles for the team. Yeah. So
it's right now I don't feel good about my pick of Tampa Bay winning that series.
Same here. And I was like 4. I thought they just turned it on. They have that better team, but didn't happen so far. All right, St. Louis in Minnesota, game 2. St. Louis won 4-0 game one.
Yeah. Well, I think Minnesota will win that game.
And
You know,
who's
I
gonna
think
play that?
this
Who's
is
playing that?
I think
playing
it'll be Fleury.
Okay.
It certainly wasn't his fault. You know, like you said, and it can't be disputed. You know, you can't win a game if you don't score a goal.
That cannot be disputed. That's very true.
Yeah. So So I'm going with
Is that indisputable or undisputable?
indisputable.
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 Can you use undisputable?
No,
You can't. Okay. I could, but wouldn't be right.
you could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. So we had. I agree with you on that. I do think Minnesota will win, and I think Florida will be in that. But I just think that's going to be a close game. That's going to be like a 3-2 game.
Well, every game should be tight in this series.
Yeah.
I don't understand what happened in that first game. I mean, these teams are a lot alike. So, you know.
And the LA Kings in game 2 at Edmonton, they won first game 4-3. The LA Kings did. So,
yeah, I got to believe the Oilers will step up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Young. So here again, fairly young team with LA, right? So typically, you win the first game, you're on the road. You think to yourself, well, we just came here to get a split. You know, now we can play a little bit easier. But I don't know.
I mean, like, imagine if you're Connor McDavid and the game is over and you're walking back to your hotel. You're with Draisaitl, and you look at him and you're going, for God's sakes.
Yeah, what do we do?
You know what I mean? Like we did. You know, we just pile up the points between the two of us. We get 245 points. We're doing the job. You know, like Connor McDavid creates more scoring chances in a game than the whole team does.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
yeah, you really see that's a great point. So the two of them are looking at each other, and they could argue that the two best players in the world right now.
Yeah,
same team, and they played what? They played one. Have they won a playoff round? No, they haven't even won a playoff round, have they?
they did. I think they won one in the bubble,
That's
didn't
right.
they?
Yes, yeah, that's right.
So, but 29 playoff games for Connor McDavid. He's played almost 500 NHL regular season games. 29 playoff games for McDavid, 21 for Draisaitl.
What are they in, like 7 or 8 seasons? Is that what it is? 7 or 8 seasons?
I don't. Is it 8? I don't think it's 8. I think it must be 7. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, and you look at all the other great players from the past: the Wayne Gretzky's, the Mark Messier's, the Mario Lemieux, all winning championships, right? And they're not even this team's not even close. Right?
Yeah. Well, and they it's the same thing. You know, if it's not goaltending, it's defense. If it's not defense, it's goaltending.
Yeah.
And you know, like what's the deal? You can't figure that out.
Yeah.
It's
it's our buddy Kenny Holland, who we both respect a lot too.
I'll tell you though, one guy who's really stepped up there. I'd love to get your take on it. Evan Bouchard. I really like him now as a defenseman. He's a young guy, and you know, it took him a little bit longer than I think they hoped, but now I watch him play. I really like him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think losing that Larson, although he wasn't like this great player, but losing Larson, walked away as a free agent, signed with Seattle. That hurt too, right? He's that kind of guy, that steady guy that just does his job. And they gave up a lot for him too, right? They traded Taylor Hall to get him too. So.
Yeah. You know, one thing we'll have to close it down, but I wanted to ask you a little bit about losing a coach when he's fired. And you know, Detroit, Jeff Blashill fired after 7 years. I mean, it's hard to not think that was the right move. I mean, they hadn't really done anything, but more importantly, you know, you say style points don't matter. It's just wins and losses, but it does matter in terms of coaching. And the way the Red Wings lost in the second half, where it just looked like they had nothing. Yeah. You know, they just did no pushback, no, you know, fight. Like, I think it was a move that Eisner had to make. Well, now that he's been fired, I find it really fascinating that, you know, like Blashill or Steve Yzerman, you know, basically said, you know, this would have been even worse if Blashill wasn't a total professional.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he held it together. He said, because, you know, basically what he was saying is the players are not good enough. Right. But, you know, he felt like he needed to, you know, sooner or later you need a new voice. And yesterday, Ben Simon, who is their minor league coach, just went on and on about what an incredible good person Blashill is. And he said, you know, here in Grand Rapids where he started, like, you know, he knew all the ushers and, you know, he treated everyone the same and all this kind of stuff. And yet, you know, I ended up writing on that, and I still had someone comment about, Well, sometimes you can be just too nice a guy. Like, just can't you let a guy just, feel sad that someone got fired? Like, do we have to analyze it right down to that nth degree?
Yeah.
Like,
I
don't, I understand. I think that Eisenman should have made that decision because they were tuning him out. But that doesn't mean you can't feel bad for the guy that got fired. I mean,
especially when he was a good guy. Like, to me, when Mike Babcock gets fired, you could care less because he treated other people.
Yeah, he treated some people poorly for sure.
I agree. Blashill seemed like all the things you said, and I saw his get interviewed, just seemed like a real gentleman, family guy. So
and players really have no idea what to say in those situations because they're, in some respects, they're responsible. So
I mean, they're young players. Like, they've got a lot of young players on that team there. They're just worried about, and this isn't anything wrong with this. They're just worried about their own careers at this point. They're not worried about the coach. They think, well, okay, I'm sorry, but I've got to take care of myself too. And they do that. Yeah.
Well, it's always the greatest thing though, because people wonder why new coaches in the NHL have so much success. Well, there's no other sport where playing time really depends on your coach. Like, and I say that because you're either a starter in baseball or you're not.
Right.
In the NBA, same thing. There's 5 guys who start, and then there's a 6th guy that gets a lot of minutes.
Right.
In football, it's the same thing. You're either a starter or you aren't. In hockey, there's minutes manipulated by the coach that really is dependent. So, everyone's on their best behavior when you get a new coach because it's a clean slate. There are guys who were in Blashill's doghouse that they're thinking, well, this new guy, he may love me. So they're playing hard. So everybody's playing hard. So that's why it does work.
Look at Johnny Gaudreau in Calgary, prime example, right? Sutter comes in. Obviously, he must like him. But now I will add, and you are correct, the coach ultimately makes that decision. But in the case of a Johnny Gaudreau, obviously he was playing well enough that Sutter says, I'm going to play him. If he wasn't playing well, Sutter wouldn't play him. So you are in control of your own fate for the most part. I mean, you have sometimes where coaches just don't like players for whatever reason.
Yeah, well, and I think we've all seen that. I mean, you've seen it more than I have, but we've seen cases where you wonder why the coach just isn't playing that guy, and then you just find out he just doesn't like him.
So it happened to me in LA where Robbie Ftorek was my coach, and and Brian Maxwell was the defense coach, and we joke about it all the time. Timmy Waters and I were a pair, and they just loved us. We played all the time. Tom Webster came in, and he wasn't in love with Tom and Tim, and we didn't get as much ice time. It was same players,
It's funny because Bernie Nichols, I just did his book. He only had one coach in his entire career that he didn't get along with, and it was Tom Webster. Didn't like. It was a great story that Tom Webster told everyone to go home but ride the stationary bike before he went home, and Bernie said, he didn't. And so the next day when Webster challenged him, he said, Tom, why would I ride the stationary bike? I haven't rode the stationary bike the entire time I've been here, and I've been here 7 years. And he says, I've never ridden that stationary bike. Why would I do it now?
Right. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it was a real, real argument. Now, it's interesting about Bernie, who never worked out, and yet he always did great on the VO tests and stuff, always was in great shape. Then he got to Chicago, and Chelios converted him in terms of Bernie was among those guys who would do push-ups in the sauna with Chelly and Suter and all those guys. Wow. And he's just such a natural athlete.
Totally. And unfortunately, this sounds a little barbaric, but back in those days, beer drinking was part of the culture of the National Hockey League. Bernie did not drink.
Total teetotal. Never drank.
I asked him one time. He said, never wanted to. I said, right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you'll find out in the book why he didn't drink. I won't spoil that. He'll talk about a little bit about that.
Okay.
But of course, Bernie had other vices, which he also talks about. So, only 8 players in NHL history have scored 70 or more goals, and Bernie's one of them.
So I remember I was there that year too. Here's a funny one. I've got to put this up there. Stefan Matteau's got a great sense of humor. So remember, Stefan Matteau scored a game-winning goal in Game 7 against the New Jersey Devils to take them to the Stanley Cup Final, where they ultimately won. And Matteau he didn't play a whole lot, but this was obviously one of the biggest goals in New York Rangers. One of the biggest plays in New York history and sports in general. So they were there at the game last night. So Matteau says to the crowd, he says, "I'd like to thank Mike for allowing Zelapuka to score with 7 seconds left, or I wouldn't be here right now." That's pretty funny. So Richter led in the goal of Zelapuka scores, which took them to overtime, and then Matteau scored in overtime. Matteau does have a pretty good sense of humor, and he's very funny because guys give him a hard time. He said, like, nobody even know you if you didn't score that big goal. Goes, yeah, okay, but I did.
Yeah, but he did. Well, same thing with Michael Ruzioni.
Yeah, sure.
You know, if he isn't a Johnny on the spot there and, scoring on that long wrist shot, today we would call that a bad goal.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, most people wouldn't say that. He shouldn't let that one.
Yeah.
I tell you, I saw Mike Richter when I was in Pittsburgh there about a month ago. He was there. Not Richter. Ruzioni. He was there.
Yeah. Well, he's a fun guy. So, all right. Well, we appreciate everyone tuning in. We'll be back next week. We'll be talking more. We haven't talked any cooking in a while, but maybe we'll get back to that. But we for sure are going to talk about the playoffs. And hopefully for all of our Ranger fans, it will be a little better series than what they saw in Game 1.
Definitely. I will post that video of me dancing. Again, that was the highlight of the game last night, so I'm sure everybody want to see that. And again, if you want to listen to the radio version of this show, you can go to radio.co at 365 Sports. And Kevin, where can they see you and reach your stuff?
I'm at hockeybuzz.com and DetroitHockeyNow.com.
Excellent. All right. See everybody next week.